Hello all, Zinger Barbecue here with an Elder Scrolls Online guide video. A quick update on my channel before we get started on the build. I am going back to Guild Wars content. I'm kind of done with Star Wars. I've taken a break pretty much from any kind of content creation, but I hope to be somewhat frequent on this game. So let me know if that's what you want or whatever you guys want me to do. Just let me know. Alright, let's get into this build. This is as the title says, a Loremaster Warden. A Loremaster is a class from a game I used to play called Lord of the Rings Online. If anyone here has ever played the game would know that the Loremaster plays a support role. So in that game, there's the Holy Trinity, tank, healer, DPS, along with a support. And I kind of built my character around that entire idea. So a Loremaster's role as a support is to do a little bit of damage, do a little bit of healing, and debuff enemies. So my entire build is that. I will be healing, a little bit of damage. I will mainly be focusing on debuffing enemies. When you do a dungeon, which I have done plenty of vet dungeons, I've done some trials with this, you are going to be a healer. Like, you heal enough to do your job as the healer, but you'll be focusing on debuffing enemies. So we're going to go over the mandatory skills, in my opinion, for this loadout, and then we'll go over some filler skills, and then we'll go into some gear. Okay, so for skills, let's start at our class skills. We will be running the Eternal Guardian. Anyone who's played a Loremaster knows that you get a pet, so this just goes with the lore of the Loremaster. It adds a lot of damage. However, obviously, if you don't care at all about being a Loremaster from Lord of the Rings, then you can switch out this ult with Warhorn, or pretty much any ult you want, Meteor, if you want more damage. But I like having the Eternal Guardian. That's just me, and I like the Guardian also because of the passives here. We'll go over passives later, though. In Green Balance, we will be taking Corrupting Pollen. Corrupting Pollen is an area of effect that doesn't do anything for allies until 6 seconds is done. After 6 seconds, it detonates and heals a huge amount in an 8-meter area. It also has a synergy to it, so if teammates get low, they can activate a synergy to heal over time. However, the Corrupting Pollen morph, which is the one we took, makes it so enemies in the area receive less healing. In trials, vet dungeons, pretty much any endgame content, there are enemies that heal, and a lot of bosses also have self-heals, so this is a very good debuff to have, especially since it covers an entire area, while also going with your role as a healer, quote-unquote. So this is a very good skill. Pretty much have it down non-stop. Even if the boss doesn't self-heal, it's still a good ability to put down. We will not be taking anything from Winter's Embrace. We are using a Restoration Staff, so we will be taking Healing Springs. Pretty much necessary. This or the other morph are necessary for pretty much any endgame healer. You basically, the same area as your Corrupting Pollen, you put down a little spring that just heals teammates every second for 3 seconds, and it's pretty spammable. You can spam it. Let me show you real quick. Just boom, boom. So you can just cast it over and over again, and it stacks. So it will stack up to like 3 times. And the morph, what it does is gives you magicka back for every teammate in the area of your initial cast. So it's really good for just sustaining your magicka, since we will have pretty much no way to get our magicka back other than, like, we will not be heavy attacking, but we will have lots of base magicka regen. So the Healing Springs just helps us keep our magicka at a good level. The next we will be taking Force Siphon. I don't have the morph quite yet because I just got this ability. We will be taking the Magicka Steel morph. I'll kind of go over what that means. It says focus your staff's power to apply minor lifesteal to an enemy. So you debuff an enemy, and you will be applying minor lifesteal and minor Magicka Steel. So every second, your teammates can, if they damage that target, they will be getting health and Magicka back. So that's a good way to debuff some more enemies. I usually use it on a really powerful mob or a boss. It's not really worth the cast time other than those situations. So our last skill that is mandatory is Inner Light in the Mages Guild. Inner Light, the active is just awful for PvE, but in for the Inner Light morph, while slotted, you get 5% extra Magicka, along with permanently getting Major Prophecy, which gives you more crit. It also works in the Mages Guild passives. You'll get even more Magicka, so it's really good for your healing and your damage, everything, just to have this slotted. So, you might be thinking, so where in this build are you focusing on debuffs? You have a Corrupting Pollen debuff, and you have the Force Siphon, Magicka, and Lifesteal debuff. That's 3 debuffs total. I'm going to go over a few filler abilities you can use, but other than that, you'll be seeing where the build comes together in our gear. For the 4th slot, you can put Deep Fissure, which reduces the enemy spell resistance in an AoE. So that's really good for debuffing as well. If you need to focus more on healing, you can take Enchanted Growth, which is a big burst heal. It's all basically what you need goes into slot 4. So it's kind of up to you in that way. If you need to focus more on healing, if you need to focus more on debuffing or damage, this is a filler skill. I've also considered in the Mages Guild taking Structured Entropy just for extra 5% health, because with just these 3 skills, you're going to be pretty busy with constantly doing something. I don't even take another weapon on this build, which is really strange for me. I usually take 2 weapons, but since I'm so busy, I pretty much never have time to switch. So let's go over our gear really quick so our build can come together quite nicely. For Monster Helm, for Monster Set, I am running Chokethorn. However, I don't have the medium shoulder yet. I've been farming keys and just have had terrible RNG. So you're going to want a heavy or medium head and a heavy or medium shoulder based on you want 1 heavy and 1 medium. So whatever one you want, so that you can benefit from the Undaunted passives. I'll go over all the passives later. So Chokethorn is just good for a big burst of healing to a single target. That's pretty much the only monster set that I found that's useful on this character. However, let's get into the other gear, which is where the build really comes together. So, we are running the Mending set. So what this set does is gives you some Magicka recovery, max Magicka, a little bit of healing done, and then while I use an Area of Effect heal ability, I reduce the weapon damage of all enemies within 10 meters of me by blankety blank for 3 seconds. So my Healing Springs does proc this. So I'm going to Healing Springs to reduce the weapon damage of enemies. So little is known that in PvE, all enemies scale off weapon damage. So you're reducing every mob's damage by quite a substantial amount. So this is a good debuff, and since it has only lasts 3 seconds, you're going to be constantly wanting to put down Healing Springs as like a spammable in a rotation for a DPS. So you're going to, heavy attack, Healing Springs, Corrupting Pollen, Healing Springs. You need it up every few seconds, not just for healing the group, but for debuffing enough. So that's the first set we use. The next set is the Infallible Aether set, which has actually an extra bonus. So we get spell crit, minor slayer at all times, extra spell damage, some more spell crit, and then fully charged heavy attacks deal extra damage, and enemies damaged with my fully charged heavy attacks are affected with minor vulnerability for 10 seconds, which makes them take 8% extra damage. So the great thing about this, when I was first coming up with this build and like farming the gear, I was kind of worried. I'm like, gosh, I'm gonna have to fully heavy attack with a Resto Staff that's like, I feel like it's at least 2 seconds. 2 seconds of heavy attacking. However, I found out when I got the set and tested it out that any amount of a heavy attack with the Resto Staff counts. So just one tick, it will pop it. So you only need to heavy attack one tick per enemy. So you get healing springs, one tick, healing springs, one tick, and like give vulnerability to every mob. It's so strong. So you need to make sure this is up at all times. Another thing on our weapon is we have the weakening enchant on our weapon. So the weakening enchant reduces the weapon damage of the target by an additional 435. So what was our mending? It was 410, 435. That's a lot of damage that the enemy is not dealing. You need to take infused to increase the effect of the enchant, otherwise it wouldn't be 435, and it reduces the cooldown, so you can permanently keep up 2 different damage debuffs on the enemy. However, if you want to take, Crushing Enchant instead, you can totally do that. If your party needs more damage, which can also be the case, you could swap this out, or if you have 2 of the same staff, you can carry both and like just weapon swap. I just don't have the other staff. If I had the other staff, I would run 2 weapons, and one with Crusher and one with Weakening. So it just depends what you want more, or what your group needs more. If you need more mitigation, so your team doesn't get like one-shot or bursted so hard, or if you'd rather reduce the resistances so your team can do more DPS. So we have so many debuffs. I'm excited. In a bit, we're going to demo it on a bad guy. I think a Bullnetch, and we will see all the debuffs on a target at a time. Okay, so let's go over our passives real quick. So for Animal Companion, since we are running the Guardian, I take all of the passives. Heals me whenever my bear dies. Whenever I use an ability, a pet ability, I generate extra ult. I get extra magicka and stamina recovery for having it slotted, and I do some extra damage for having it. For the green balance, I take all the passives. When I heal an ally under 40%, I get extra healing for 3 seconds. When I heal an ally with a green balance ability, I get magicka or stamina back. And just get extra healing for whatever ability I have slotted. This one's really strong. When I activate a heal on an ally, I give them minor toughness, which increases their max health by 10% for 20 seconds. I'll give a quick demo of that. See, right now, just putting a healing springs down gives me extra health right here, minor toughness. So that's really nice. In Winter's Embrace, I take the bottom 2 passives, which reduce the effectiveness of snares, and then gives me some extra magic damage. I don't really take anything else in here. In Resto Staffs, I'm going to be taking every passive. Light armor, I'm going to be taking every passive. In medium, I will be taking the first 3 and the last passive. And in heavy, I'll be taking the first 3 passives. For Mage's Guild, I will be taking all passives. Undaunted, all passives. And for Rachel, you obviously will take all passives. So let's go over the champion points real quick. For the red tree, you want some Ironclad. That's just what the points I have in it right now. You want some light armor focus for some extra resistances, especially if you're a Breton like me. You get lots of spell resistance, because I have light armor and Breton, so I get a lot of spell resistance. So this just brings my physical a little more in line with that. Hardy and Elemental Defender is pretty much just flat mitigation of damage, especially when you have both. So I recommend getting those up to 75 for that 14%. For the green, I took a little bit in Siphoner kind of as a joke because it shows another debuff on the enemies when I heavy attack. It's not really relevant for PvE. I also take Arcanist for extra magicka recovery, and I take Befoul, that's what it is, Befoul, for extra effectiveness of my healing reduction abilities, so my contaminated pollen area reduces healing by even more. I think it's normally like 30% or maybe 35%, and I brought it up to like 46, so that's really good. For the blue, I take Blessed, and I also take some Elemental Expert, and I will be taking some Spell Erosion as well later on, but I also take Master of Arms up to full because I like my bear doing more damage. You can obviously put those points where you want. If you want Elfborn for more healing, that's entirely your choice. I'm just kind of doing a gimmick, and that's what I like to do. So, those are my points. Let's go over a quick rotation before we actually get into combat. So the most important thing is that we have these healing springs down at all times. So usually to start a fight, since it will be at range, if it is a boss, I will first pop my, what is it called? Force Siphon, sorry. I will be putting down my Force Siphon on this enemy. Then I will be putting down my Corrupting Pollen, followed by Healing Springs into a heavy attack proc. And just look at the amount of debuffs I put onto this enemy. So, my heavy attack, see how I just do one little tick of it, and it is able to put the whole effect of the minor vulnerability. So that's why it's so important just to throw in a tick every once in a while, and it's also important to proc our weapon enchant. And so the blue ghost-looking debuff is our from the Healing Springs debuff. So that was from the Healing Springs debuff, and as you saw, we were able to keep it up at all times. Let's see if there's another Bull Netch over here. Aha, there is. So I'm going to be opening with Force Siphon. Here we go. I'm going to ult just for fun. Putting out my Corrupting Pollen. I can't use Healing Springs. There it goes. Followed by some Heavy Attack. Healing Springs. Corrupting Pollen. Heavy Attack. Healing Springs. Heavy Attack. Healing Springs. Heavy Attack. Healing Springs. Force Siphon because it's low. Into a Healing Springs. The Corrupting Pollen. More Heavy Attacks. So you're pretty much playing as a DPS, even though you're not doing that much DPS. Like, the fact that you have a rotation and you have, like, priorities is why I really enjoy this build. Like, there's so many debuffs on the enemy. It's really exciting. It's really unique too. I've seen some forum posts where people are looking for this kind of playstyle, so I'm just kind of happy that I was actually able to make it, and it works. Oh, I didn't even go over food. Witch Mother's Potent Brew is the one I would be taking. It gives you enough health to do most content, and it gives you that much needed magicka recovery and some max magicka. So anyways, I think that is all for this build. If you want to see this in some vet dungeons or a trial, let me know in the comments, and I would be glad to get some footage of that because it's been really fun playing this. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoy your gaming experiences and have a great day. Bye.